The morning I lost my home, I was making tea. Nothing special, just standing at the kitchen counter, waiting for the kettle to click off, watching steam fog the window. It was early spring in North Vancouver, and the street was quiet in that soft, polite way it usually is before 9. That's when I heard the knock. Not loud, not urgent, just firm, official. When I opened the door, 2 RCMP officers were standing on my porch. Behind them, a few steps back, was my daughter Emily. She didn't look upset. She didn't look angry either, just composed, professional, like she'd already moved past whatever this was. One of the officers cleared his throat. "Sir, are you Dr. Andrew Park?" "I am," I said. Emily stepped forward before he could continue. "Dad," she said evenly, "you need to leave. This isn't your house anymore." I didn't respond right away. I remember noticing how quiet everything felt. The kettle still humming behind me, a gull calling somewhere down the street. My own heartbeat, steady, almost stubbornly calm. "This is my home," I said finally. "What are you talking about?" "You transferred ownership," she replied. "You signed everything, the house, the clinic, all of it, 2 days ago." 2 days. I looked at her then, really looked, trying to find something familiar in her face. Some hesitation, some sign that this was a misunderstanding we could step back from. I didn't find it. The older officer spoke carefully. "Sir, legally, if your daughter is the registered owner, we can't force her to let you stay. Do you have somewhere else you can go tonight?" I didn't answer. Because just 48 hours earlier, I'd signed papers I thought were about taxes and retirement planning. Papers my daughter had brought me with charts and calm explanations. Papers I'd trusted because I was tired, and because she was my daughter. I stepped back from the doorway without arguing. I picked up my coat, my wallet, my phone. As I walked past Emily, she didn't look at me, and as I stood on the porch with the officers waiting politely, I realized there was something I hadn't checked yet, something I'd assumed was still mine. I put the door key in my pocket. Then I waited. I didn't argue with the officers. There wasn't any point. They were polite, careful with their words, doing exactly what they'd been told to do. I could see it in the way they stood, hands relaxed, eyes moving slowly, waiting for me to decide. Emily stayed by the walkway, arms folded, looking past me, not at me. I locked the door myself before leaving, out of habit mostly. The kettle was still warm when I stepped outside. I don't remember the drive. I remember pulling up in front of Helen Morrison's house, my late wife's closest friend from her nursing days, and sitting in the car for a full minute before I opened the door. The porch light came on as soon as I stepped out, like she'd been watching from the window. "Andrew?" she said when she opened the door. "What's happened?" I didn't answer right away. She pulled me inside, set my bag down, and guided me to the kitchen table. The room smelled like lemon cleaner and toast. Familiar. Safe. Eventually the story came out. Slowly, in pieces. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she said only one thing. "You need a lawyer." "I signed everything," I said. "It's legal." "I don't care," she replied. "It's wrong." That night, I slept on her couch. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, replaying the last few months the way I'd replay complicated cases in my head after surgery. Emily had moved back to Vancouver last spring, said she wanted to be closer after losing her mother. I'd believed her. We'd started having Sunday dinners again, walks near the water, conversations that felt almost normal. Then she met Ryan, confident, polished, the kind of man who spoke in outcomes and timelines. He liked to talk about efficiency, about unlocking value, about legacy planning. I liked him too. That's the part I don't enjoy admitting. When they came to me in March, it didn't feel like pressure. It felt like care. Emily had charts, Ryan had projections. They talked about capital gains, about minimizing exposure, about how transferring the clinic early would protect everything I'd built. "You'd still receive income," Emily had said. "Nothing changes day to day." I should have called my own attorney. I didn't, because I was tired, because I trusted her, because I missed having someone else share the weight of decisions. The next morning, Helen made coffee and slid a phone across the table. "Call Thomas," she said. "He went to medical school with you. Switched to law. I called. He answered on the second ring. Andrew, he said after I explained, you need to come see me. Today. By noon, we were sitting in his office, papers spread out, dates circled, signatures examined. He didn't look shocked. That bothered me more than if he had. This wasn't tax planning, he said finally. This was a transfer of control. I agreed to it, I said. You agreed based on representations that may not be true, he replied. That matters. Over the next week, I moved into a small apartment in New Westminster, 1 bedroom, 800 square feet. Helen helped me set it up. I kept my phone off most of the time. Emily didn't call. Ryan moved fast. Within days, the clinic was listed for sale, well below market. 2 surgeons were let go. Longtime staff were given severance and escorted out. I heard about it from Dr. Patel, one of the surgeons I'd trained myself. Andrew, he said quietly over the phone, this isn't what you built. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. First, do no harm. That phrase had guided my entire career, and now everything I'd built was being dismantled while I watched from the outside. 14 days after I left my house, my phone rang at 2:07 a.m. unknown number. I almost didn't answer. When I did, Emily's voice was shaking. Dad, she said, Ryan's gone. I said nothing. He sold the clinic, she continued, all of it. He emptied the accounts. He flew out yesterday. I can't reach him. I stayed quiet. The bank says the house has a second mortgage, she said. They're going to foreclose. I didn't know. I listened. Dad, she said finally, breaking, I don't know what to do. I put the phone face down on the table. Then I waited. I didn't respond to Emily that night. I didn't text back. I didn't call. I didn't even listen to the voicemail she left after the call disconnected. I put the phone on the table and let it stay there. For 72 hours, it didn't stop. Missed calls, messages, emails, some apologetic, some frantic, some trying to explain what had happened without quite saying what she'd done. Helen thought I was being too hard. She's your daughter, she said gently. She was manipulated. She's a corporate lawyer, I replied. She reads contracts for a living. That didn't mean she wasn't manipulated. It just meant the manipulation came dressed as something familiar, something she wanted to believe. On the 4th day, Thomas called. Andrew, he said, I need to walk you through what I've found. I sat at the small kitchen table in my apartment. The chair wobbled slightly. I made a note to fix it later. First, he said, the tax benefits you were promised don't exist. In fact, the transfer created a significant liability for you. I closed my eyes. Second, he continued, the projections Ryan showed you were fabricated, completely. Can we prove that? I asked. Yes, he said. And there's more. He paused. Ryan Williams isn't his real name. I waited. His legal name is Ryan Zhao, Thomas said. He's done this before. Calgary 5 years ago. Same pattern. Marries into a family with assets. Gains trust. Pushes a transfer. Liquidates. Disappears. My stomach tightened, but my voice stayed even. And Emily? That's complicated, he said. She signed the eviction notice. She facilitated the sale. Legally, she's exposed. Silence. But, he added, everything suggests she was being used. Ryan had her sign documents in batches. He controlled the timing, the messaging. He isolated her from anyone who might question him. So she's a victim, I said. Yes, he replied. And also responsible. We both let that sit. Can we reverse the transfer? I asked. I've already filed, he said. It'll be a fight. Depositions, forensic accounting, and Andrew, Emily is going to face consequences, professionally at least. I won't press charges against her, I said. Thomas exhaled. I was expecting that. Go after Ryan, I continued. Get the clinic back if we can. Leave Emily out of anything criminal. The Law Society won't, he said. Once this becomes public, they'll act. Keep it as contained as possible, I said. That's all I'm asking. The legal process moved quietly at first. Motions filed, accounts flagged, Notice is sent. I stayed out of the way and followed instructions. Emily sent one last message during that time. Dad, I've resigned from my firm. I'm in therapy. I don't expect you to reply. I just want you to know I understand what I did. I'm sorry. I saved it. Didn't respond. In early June, Thomas called again. We've frozen Ryan's accounts, he said. Interpol has him detained in Singapore. Extradition is in motion. And the clinic? Damaged, he said. But recoverable. About 60% of the funds have been traced. I sat back and looked around the apartment. The bare walls. The single-framed photo of my wife I'd brought with me. The quiet. What do you want to do? Thomas asked. I want my practice back, I said. And I want to do no more harm. In July, I reopened the clinic. It took weeks to rehire staff, to restore protocols, to reassure patients who'd been rushed through shortened consultations and unfamiliar faces. Dr. Patel came back. So did most of the team. The work steadied me. Late one evening in August, Helen came by unannounced. She didn't ask to sit. She just did. You're hiding, she said. I'm working. There's a difference, she replied. Emily calls me every Sunday. She asks if you're eating, if you're sleeping, if you're okay. I didn't answer. She never asks me to convince you to call her, Helen said. She just wants to know you're alive. That night, after Helen left, I stayed in my office long after everyone else had gone. I opened Emily's contact. I stared at it. Then I typed one sentence. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I'm okay. The clinic is recovering. When you're ready to come home, let me know. I put the phone down. Then I waited. Emily replied 3 minutes later. Thank you. I love you. I'm so sorry. I didn't answer that one. Not because I didn't feel it, but because I needed the space to stay clear. Emotional conversations blur lines. At that point, lines were the only thing keeping everything from collapsing again. The legal work intensified after that. Thomas laid it out for me in steps, the way he always did, calm, sequential, unemotional. Step 1. Secure the remaining clinic assets before they could be dissipated further. Step 2. Document the fraudulent representations Ryan had used, false tax projections, fabricated valuations, misleading timelines. Step 3. Prepare for depositions. Mine, Emily's, former staff, accountants. I followed instructions, nothing more. I answered questions. I signed affidavits. I provided calendars, emails, meeting notes. The same habits that made me a careful surgeon made me a careful witness. Dates mattered. Language mattered. Silence mattered. Emily flew back to Toronto during that time. She didn't ask to see me. She didn't ask for money. She stayed out of the process unless Thomas required her involvement. That restraint mattered too. In early September, Thomas called with an update. The transfer documents are officially under review, he said. CRA is involved now. Their findings support our position. This was induced under false pretenses. And Ryan? I asked. Still in custody. Extradition hearing scheduled. What about Emily's exposure? He paused. The Law Society has opened an investigation. Minimum 1-year suspension likely. I closed my eyes briefly. She knows, he said. She's cooperating fully. That was the moment I allowed myself to breathe again. Not relief, just acknowledgement that the situation had moved from chaos into process. I saw Emily again for the first time in October. We met for coffee near English Bay. Neutral ground, public, quiet enough to talk without feeling exposed. She looked thinner, tired, older in a way that wasn't physical. I don't expect forgiveness, she said before sitting down. I just wanted to tell you the truth. I listened. She didn't blame Ryan, not entirely. She talked about wanting to believe, about grief, about how he reframed every doubt until doubt felt like disloyalty. I chose him over you, she said. That part is on me. I didn't argue. I didn't fight back when you had me removed, I said instead, because I wanted to see if you'd come back on your own. She nodded slowly. I did. Yes, I said. You did. We didn't hug, we didn't cry. We finished our coffee and stood up. "That's enough for today," I said. She agreed. By November, the clinic was stable again. Patient volumes normal. Protocols restored. Trust returning in small, measurable ways. One evening, as I locked my office, Thomas called. "Andrew," he said, "Interpol has approved the extradition. Ryan will stand trial here." I thanked him. I drove home slowly that night. No radio, just the sound of tires on wet pavement. The pieces were aligning, not emotionally, structurally. And for the first time since that knock on my door, I felt like the outcome was no longer floating, it was moving. Then I waited. The confrontation didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened in a conference room on the 4th floor of Thomas's building, with a long table, a pitcher of water, and the blinds half open to let in late morning light. Emily arrived early. She was already seated when I walked in, hands folded, back straight. She stood when she saw me, then hesitated, unsure whether to move closer. I nodded once and took my seat across from her. No lawyers at first, just us. "I won't defend what I did," she said quietly. "I won't explain it away." I let her finish. "I signed documents I shouldn't have," she continued. "I let someone else control the pace and the narrative, and when you questioned it, I treated you like a problem instead of my father." I didn't respond immediately. I poured myself a glass of water, took one sip. "You involved the police," I said. "You watched them ask me if I had somewhere to go." Her eyes dropped to the table. "Yes," she said. "That wasn't manipulation," I continued. "That was a decision." "I know," she replied, "and I live with it." There was no anger in the room, no raised voices, just clarity. Thomas joined us a few minutes later. He placed a thin stack of documents on the table and opened the top page. "These are the findings," he said. "Timeline, transfers, sale records, wire confirmations, everything is documented." He turned the papers so we could both see. "Ryan orchestrated the fraud," he continued, "but Emily facilitated key actions. That's not in dispute." Emily nodded once. "I'm not asking to be excused," she said. "I'm asking to be accountable without destroying what's left." Thomas looked at me. "This is where your voice matters," he said. "The regulators will act regardless, but criminal exposure can be influenced by cooperation." I thought about the house, the porch, the officers waiting patiently while I packed a bag. "I'm not pressing charges against my daughter," I said. "That's my boundary." Thomas wrote something down. "Understood," he said. "That doesn't mean there are no consequences." "I know," Emily said. Thomas slid another document forward. "A formal acknowledgement," he explained, "of misconduct, of responsibility. It stays on record." Emily picked up the pen without hesitation and signed. No pause. No argument. When the meeting ended, Thomas left us alone again. We stood at the same time. "I'm not ready for normal," I said. "I don't know when I will be." "I'm not asking for normal," she replied. "I'm asking for honest." I nodded once. "That's all I can offer right now," I said. "That's more than I deserve," she replied. We walked out separately. That evening, I went back to the clinic, checked charts, spoke with a nurse about a patient I'd seen that morning. Familiar ground, steady ground. At home later, I made soup, cleaned the counter, set my phone face down on the table. The confrontation was over. What came next wouldn't be emotional, it would be procedural, and I was ready for that. Then I waited. The resolution came the way most real ones do, quietly, on paper, in increments. Ryan's extradition took longer than anyone wanted. Months of filings, jurisdictional arguments, delays that felt intentional. When he finally arrived back in Canada, there was no spectacle, no news cameras, just a court date on a calendar and a set of charges that didn't need emotion to stand up. 11 counts: fraud, misrepresentation, identity misuse, financial exploitation. The evidence did the talking. Wire transfers traced through 3 accounts, time-stamped emails, altered projections compared against real tax code. Testimony from 2 families before mine who'd lost everything the same way. I didn't testify, Emily did. For 4 hours. I watched from the back of the room. She spoke clearly. Slowly, without dramatics. She didn't minimize her role. She didn't shift blame where it didn't belong. I made decisions that hurt my father, she said at one point. I trusted someone I shouldn't have and ignored the person who had never failed me. That sentence stayed with me. Ryan was convicted on all counts. 15 years. No appeal bond. That closed one chapter. The clinic took longer. We recovered about 60% of the funds. Enough to stabilize. Enough to rebuild. Not enough to pretend nothing had happened. I rehired who I could. Restored protocols, line by line. Patients came back slowly. Trust always does. The regulatory side moved forward as well. Emily's license was suspended for a year. No criminal charges. Mandatory ethics review. Supervised practice when she returned. Conditions that couldn't be negotiated away. She accepted all of it. I don't need a shortcut back, she told me once. I need to earn whatever comes next. By winter, the clinic felt like mine again, not because the walls were familiar, but because the work was steady, the decisions were careful, the days had shape again. I moved out of the apartment in New Westminster and into a smaller place closer to the clinic. 1 bedroom, clean lines, quiet mornings. I liked knowing where everything was. Emily didn't ask to move in. She didn't ask for money. She stayed in Toronto, working contract work under supervision. Therapy twice a week, no excuses when plans fell through, no pressure when I didn't answer calls. That restraint mattered more than apologies. One evening in February, Thomas called. "Everything's finalized," he said. "No more pending actions." I thanked him and hung up. I stood at the kitchen sink afterward and washed my mug by hand. Dried it, put it upside down on the rack. Nothing else needed doing. For the first time since that knock on my door, there were no documents waiting to be reviewed, no calls expected, no decisions suspended. The situation wasn't erased, but it was contained, and that was enough. Then I waited. Life didn't snap back into place. It settled. That spring I started walking again in the mornings, same route most days. Down toward the water, past the coffee shop that opens too early, along the stretch where the noise fades and you can hear your own steps. I don't rush anymore. There's no reason to. The clinic runs well now, not bigger than before, just steadier. I see fewer patients each day and spend more time with each one. That feels right. My hands are still steady. My judgment is better than it's ever been. Emily moved back to Vancouver in April. Not into my home. Into her own small apartment near Burnaby. She didn't ask. She didn't assume. She told me where she'd be and said I could decide when, or if, I wanted to see her more often. We started with coffee once a month, then twice. Now we have dinner most Sundays. Nothing elaborate. Soup, rice, vegetables. Sometimes Patricia joins us. We don't talk about Ryan. We don't revisit the details. We talk about work, about patients, about Emily's cases at the small firm she joined. Mostly elder law now. Protecting people who don't realize they're being pushed until it's too late. She's good at it. That matters to me. One evening recently, she told me she'd won a case for an older man whose son had taken power of attorney and drained his accounts. She got everything back. "I kept thinking about you," she said. "About what almost happened." I nodded. Then something good came from it. She didn't argue. I still make tea the same way every night, same mug, same routine. I clean the counter before bed, set the alarm. Small things that signal the day is complete and tomorrow can wait. Sometimes I think about how close I came to losing everything without raising my voice once. How easily trust becomes leverage when it isn't protected by time and pause. A man at the clinic mentioned his daughter last week, said she was helping manage things now. He smiled when he said it, but his shoulders were tight. I listened more than I spoke. These stories don't announce themselves. They arrive quietly, with paperwork, with good intentions, with someone you love telling you they know better. If you're listening and something in this feels familiar, pay attention to that. You don't have to act immediately, but you don't have to ignore it either. For me, peace looks like this now. Clean mornings, honest work, measured conversations, and a relationship rebuilt with boundaries instead of assumptions. That's enough. If this story resonated with you, I'm glad you stayed. You're welcome here. Please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It helps more people find these stories. And if you'd like, leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I read those quietly, usually with tea. 2 popular stories will appear next.